Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our webcast on developing AI tools, practical insights for CEOs. Today's session is the third installment of a four-part AI series we have assembled with thought leaders in the community, and we hope to see you at each of them. During the presentation, note that you are in chat-only mode. As the discussion unfolds, feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A box. And now it is with great pleasure to introduce and hand things over to John Harmeling, Chief Revenue Officer of CEO Coaching International.
Hello, and welcome to our webcast today on developing AI tools, practical insights for CEOs. My name is John Harmeling. We at CEO Coaching International are a CEO coaching firm that has worked with thousands of CEOs and entrepreneurs all around the world to help them take their businesses to the next level. Now, one of the things we're most proud of is the results our clients see. Clients that are with CEO Coaching International experience 2.6 times greater revenue growth and 5 times the EBITDA growth against the US average, according to our most recent client performance data. And there's good reason why these results happen. Our CEO coaches are the best in the world. They're all ex-CEOs who have faced many of the same problems you're facing every single day. One critical business problem our clients are facing is how to tackle AI. Our clients have told us that they rate the importance of having an AI strategy as critically important, but they frequently tell us that their readiness, their actual AI strategies are still immature. So we're working to keep you on top of it by bringing you the very best thinking, the very best experts to bring you up to speed and to get ahead on a very fast evolving AI landscape. Now, a few weeks ago, we hosted our own Chief AI Officer, Kurt Gooden, for a fascinating discussion on the basics of AI, what it means for a CEO, and how to leverage its vast capabilities for your business. More recently, we went deep with Raj Kapoor, a leading expert on AI in business, on the most famous large language model, ChatGPT, to understand both the basics as well as its implications on your business. If you weren't able to make those webcasts, we invite you to go back to our website, check out the replays. And if you're interested in learning more or speaking on a complimentary basis with one of our coaches, feel free to use the link in the chat to book time with us. We're delighted to help, of course. Also, if you have any questions to pose to our speakers today, please feel free to submit them through the question box, and we'll do our very best to get to them in the course of our discussion. Now, speaking of today, for the next 45 or 50 minutes or so, you're going to get a real treat. We are getting even more practical. We're talking with the leaders at Hatchworks AI, a company dedicated to building AI applications. And they're doing this successfully for countless companies all around the world in all kinds of industries. So we're going to go deeper on what it takes to get started in leveraging these amazing capabilities and how to avoid the pitfalls that other businesses and CEOs encounter when they're thinking about their AI strategy. So now I'll introduce you to our two guests for today's webcast. We have Brandon Powell with us today. Brandon is the founder and CEO of Hatchworks AI. Hatchworks, of course, works with clients every day to leverage this vast array of AI applications in your business, advanced solutions to get you ahead. Hatchworks AI, by the way, has been recognized as a best workplace by Inc. Magazine's, a top AI company by Clutch. We also have Matt Page with us. Matt is the VP of Strategy and Marketing at Hatchworks AI. He's also the host of the Built Right podcast and the Gen DD Lab series of AI classes. Matt's mission is to demystify AI so that you can take full advantage of it in your work and in your life. So, two experts with us to help you work through the practical application of AI in your business. So, welcome, Brandon and Matt.
Thank you, John, for having me.
How's it going?
Terrific. So first of all, why don't you tell us just a little bit about what you do at Hatchworks AI?
Yeah, so Hatchworks is an AI development company, and what we do is we help companies build custom AI native products. And what that means is things like chatbots and agents and helping companies leverage AI to really automate things in their business. Our end goal is really to help them drive either new revenue streams or to drive costs out of their business. Either way, we're helping improve their bottom line. We've built what we call a generative-driven framework, which allows us to build products like AI products faster, cheaper, smarter. And at the end of the day, that's giving our customers a better ROI.
Fantastic. So obviously we've spent the bulk at CEO Coaching International, the bulk of this year kind of sounding the alarm about why CEOs need to embrace AI now or risk being replaced. Now, we feel like we've gotten their attention, and we'd like to discuss maybe the questions and topics that smart CEOs should arm themselves with to begin AI implementation, which you all do so well. So beyond the basics of standing up these capabilities into actually implementing them in your business. And so maybe a really fundamental question, Brandon, maybe for you. As a CEO, how should I think about AI technology? Should I start by identifying a business challenge or problem? Or should I first explore the AI technologies that are available and find a problem that they can solve?
Yeah, so great. And by the way, you guys did a great job at the Make Big Happen conference down in Miami a few months ago of really, I think, one, sounding the alarm, but two, also providing a lot of education. And I think that when it comes to Gen AI, it's really a dual path. You've got to understand what it is. Even as a CEO, you don't have to understand the technical details. I'm not an engineer, even though we have 200 engineers, I'm not one. But I know that I need to be able to at least understand it. And I think at the end of the day, with AI, with the hype, people are really searching for problems to solve with it and kind of playing into the hype. And so my suggestion is really to focus on what are the business problems that we have, and then go and look and say, is AI really the right way to solve the problem? And I think that AI can actually solve a lot of problems, but it needs to be the right solution. I talk to CEOs, I mean, every week, multiple CEOs, even CTOs, and they've been mandated either by a board or someone to find a way to use AI. And at the end of the day, there's just so many use cases that you can apply it to, but you shouldn't go around, I've got this hammer, which is AI, and now I'm looking for the nail. Work from the problem and then figure out, is AI the right solution?
Yeah, it's that human nature piece where you get this new shiny hammer and you're searching for nails to hit it with. And you see this out in the market, like we're hitting the hype cycle. You have like the US Open's about to take off with golf. There's a driver now that's an AI based driver. There's a toothbrush that's AI. Like this stuff's kind of shooting out everywhere. But again, back to your point, like John, you got to start with the problem or you're not going to get the ROI at the end of it.
Yeah, so if you think about this from a functional area standpoint in businesses, obviously, you're implementing multiple AI projects right now. And so, what broad buckets would you say most companies are executing AI projects in? So what parts of their business, what functional areas are you observing?
So I think a lot of customers, and I think this is the right way, including the work that CEO coaching and Kurt are doing with customers, is look for the quick win, right? What are the things that we can implement very quickly? And a lot of that will tie into, we see there's probably 10 to 20 use cases that these quick wins will fall into, mainly around chatbots. Most of it's a chatbot. Some of it could be an agent. And there's just countless examples. We'll talk about one later. Let me give you a simple, easy example. We have, we have HR manuals. We have people in 5 countries, right? And we have multiple languages. And we have these HR books for every single, and there's hundreds of pages. So we took all that data and we built, I think, essentially a bot, so that instead of going to HR when you want to ask a question about how much vacation or this or that, even though they've had it, they can just ask the bot. Okay, that's a 4 to 6 week project, and you get a bot out. And so many of the use cases are definitely around bots to start with, because one of the things, as someone who's, I'm not an engineer, I'm new, so I'm looking for an easy problem that I can solve, and that's going to actually help me. Okay, and so that example I just gave you means that my HR people in each country don't have to answer as many silly questions that come in from people. I look at that and say, well, now they've got more time, right? And so I think when it comes down to it, it's looking at these quick wins and starting with one of those. And most, I would say 8 out of 10 are some form of a bot that the customer's looking to do.
And just to show that off, give you a view into it, and I feel like slightly vulnerable now sharing my Slack, but this is the bot that Brandon was talking about, right? So, and I was amazed too, like we got 400-page documents for HR and we're across LATAM and the US, but now employees can come in and just ask conversationally the bot about, procedures, policies, all those kind of things. So, it's June, we got the performance reviews coming up. So, what's the process for performance reviews? And I think the one thing to note too is that this is in Slack. We've kind of built this whole architecture to where it could be Slack, it could be Teams, it could be name your chat interface, it could be your actual product. But then it gives me like the detail. It's a 6-month self-assessment. You got the review meeting, the feedback, all that's great. Let's get to something that's truly valuable. When do I actually get paid? That's what I want to know. When am I going to get paid? I'm starting new with the company, and it lets me know, the 8th and the 23rd. But like, why is this valuable? It's saving people time, and it may be a small amount of time from the HR people not having to answer these questions, but that adds up over time. And John, I just want to share real quick too, and I don't want to go technical with this, but RAG, it's a term you need to know. So if you're talking about types of solutions and AI, this, that, and the other, you're talking with your IT and technology teams, you may hear this topic come up. RAG is just retrieval augmented generation. And that's what we're doing with this example we just showed off, right? So you have a large language model that's working with your own proprietary data to go and retrieve those answers I was asking. And the beauty there is it's a lot cheaper. I don't have to actually go and fine tune a model, and it's real time based on your data. So it's a really effective solution. It's gaining a lot of traction lately. So I just want to put that out there. RAG, just put that down in your new vocabulary of AI. And just to hit another customer use case too, Cox 2M is one of our clients in the IoT space, and similar type of solution for them. They have this fleet management tool, and we've developed a similar solution where people using the tool can conversationally ask things about their fleet, like questions like, how many trips did my employees do last month? How many of these employees are speeding during their trips, right? Or like stuff we used to get back in like, high school math, like based on the max speed and miles traveled, which vehicles might require maintenance soon, like these conversational type of questions that you can get the insight from. So just wanted to put that out there, a neat type of solution that you need to have in your vocabulary as a CEO in this new kind of age we're going into.
That's terrific. And I want to ask you just fundamentally the difference between a bot and an agent in a second, because obviously those are kind of easy applications. But in the case of RAG, is that even something that I, as a CEO, do I need to worry about a data infrastructure, or can it just pull from information that I've already got in a repository?
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. It's connecting with your own proprietary data, but you're not having to like send it out to other models or fine tuning within the models. It's protected within your own, whether it's on-premise or cloud, private cloud. So that's one of the huge benefits. It's really security, cost savings, and then the real-time nature you can get by connecting with your data.
Interesting. Okay.
So you want to say from the RAG side, just as a CEO, like if you ask me the acronym, like what it means, I couldn't tell you the whole thing, but I know what, like Matt said, I know what it is. And I think as a CEO, what I think about there is my data is separate. My data is not mixed in with this large LLM. My customer data is not being shared with the world, because that's top of mind as a CEO, right? When I'm building these solutions for customers, I'm very focused on privacy and making sure they're out there. And to me, the RAG also means flexibility, because you're keeping your stuff separate. And if I want to change out, whether I'm using OpenAI or Llama, or you pick your model, those keep changing. As a CEO, I know I have the flexibility to switch. So if one gets really expensive, I can switch it out, because I didn't intermingle these things. I didn't build my own model. I just use my data, which is separate, to train one of the models that are out there.
Very good. Very good. So you noted that one of the quickest hit wins that are possible, and you showed the example of HatchieWorks in terms of the bot. But I just want to make sure I'm establishing the difference between a bot and an agent, because you use both of those terms. What do those mean?
I'd say they're synonymous, to be honest. The way to think about agents is you're tailoring the AI to take on a specific role and execute a specific task with a certain set of context, which could be information from the RAG, whatever. So like these could take on roles of things you're doing within the company now. And just another one while I'm talking, I'll pull it up. But the neat thing with these agents is you can begin to effectively orchestrate them together over time. Like think about them like little humans, like in your organization, they can take on some of those roles. And just an example of one, I know probably everybody's familiar with HubSpot, right? Dharmesh is now doing this separate thing where he's creating these AI agents, and he has several that he's creating, and they're just tailored towards specific tasks. This one's a company research agent, right? So you just come in, and anybody can go sign up for this for free. You drop in a domain. I dropped in ours, and it does all this research, provides all this context about the company. And look at the table of contents of detail: funding stages, funding data, competitive analysis, social media details, Glassdoor. Like, think of what it would take a human to go and do all this. I just did it like that. Like, this is an example of an agent that is very focused on competitive research. It's giving you all of this detail.
So is this one proprietary, or is this someone that all of our attendees can go to today?
Yeah, anybody can go to this. Go to agent.ai. Dharmesh has built it, and I think he's got some model where it's based on how many times you use it. You can buy credits, but he gives a bunch away for free. He's more interested just in building cool stuff, to be honest. I'm not sure. That's a curious question, and this will get into what I think we're going to chat about in a minute: closed source versus open source. I'm not sure what models he's using under the hood, whether that's OpenAI and ChatGPT or some other closed source solution. But I would bet it's specific to the agent and the best use case for that agent. If that makes sense.
But the point here is, if I'm running a business and let's say I'm either outsourcing some research or I've got people who are doing the manual labor of research that you just showed, this capability exists where you can literally at the touch of a button scrape all that information and be able to access it. And so where I'm currently employing people in one regard, I could redirect them in higher and better uses, is what I think you're saying.
Yeah, and these people can do better things with their time. I mean, the key thing is understanding like what generative AI is. It's probabilistic and non-deterministic. It uses probabilities, and it's great at reasoning, pattern matching, which effectively is like logic, right? So that's a critical thing. You got to understand what is AI best suited for, what problems is it best suited for solving, right? Versus traditional things of that nature. But if you can empower your people to understand that, they got a million repetitive, boring, tasks they do every day that they could start applying this to. So there's a big empowerment factor of just helping educate your people, kind of open their eyes to the art of the possible, and you just unleash them to start leveraging some of this stuff.
So just in terms of teams, because I think it's a really interesting point. I mean, you all obviously have a really big team that's highly expert at AI implementation. It's what you do for a living. But if I'm a CEO, how should I be thinking about hiring for AI talent? What skills and expertise should I look for when building a team, an AI team, or should I be outsourcing? Should I be thinking about hiring people? Should I be training my people? How do I think about just equipping my organization?
I'll take that. So John, we've been in business for 8 years now. The first 7 years, we mainly focused on building software. Okay, and so we have a ton of engineers that were very software focused. Probably a year and a half ago or so, whenever ChatGPT came out, I realized that AI is going to enable us to be way more efficient and effective. So some people said, I'm going to ignore this. It'll never replace what an engineer can do or a developer can do. And I looked at it and said, we can either jump on this wave really, really early and ride it so that as it starts to take away more of the need, to code, which is what we've been seeing, we're going to already be on it. And so I had to figure out, I wouldn't say I had no people because we've been building, kind of AI ML solutions, but we probably had out of a couple 105 people maybe that were like really like AI, like they knew their stuff. And so what I did was I created champions. So I took a group of I took a handful of the ones that kind of were up to speed on AI and had an understanding. And then I looked across the entire organization, not just in the engineering, HR, recruiting, marketing, every single part. And I created this team of champions with the idea that we would use more of a train the trainer model. And so we started investing first in those champions, right? Where we, there's so much free training that's out there. So we didn't want them just all taking random stuff. And so we looked online, we created a set of training courses that we wanted our people to take. Some had to do with risk, right? Like, how do we make sure as we're doing projects for our customers that we understand the pitfalls and the bad part of AI? And then a lot of it had to do with understanding the upside and how could we enable. So we trained those champions first, small group, and we learned. And once we had the champions, then we started rolling out the curriculum across the company. So everyone took it, everyone. I don't care your department, I don't care what you do, because things like being prompt trained and knowing how to use ChatGPT, that can help a financial analyst just as much as it could help a developer. It can help them the same in terms of driving efficiency in their job and what they're doing. So started small, get that group, roll that curriculum out across the company. And I would say if you're a company that has zero, like I had 5, so I was lucky, but if you had 0 and never touched this technology, what I would do is think about partnering with someone. So for example, we do workshops to help people first learn about Gen AI and then help them learn how to apply it in a day. Like, create those use cases, create that understanding. But what I wouldn't do is, if I used a partner, I would not solely depend on the partner, because then I don't gain anything internally. So I would want to do everything together, meaning if I used a partner to come in and help me train or help me evolve the organization, I want my people really gathering and learning this, because unlike, we've built a lot of applications and they outsource it to us and we build it and we bring it back and we give it to them and they're like, oh, this is great. You've got to learn how to fish on this, right? You've got to learn how to use AI across your org. And so even if you outsource to a partner, doing it together, doing co-development, doing co-training, I think that's another important factor here, because you're talking about a technology that's not just a piece of software, but it's a way of working. It's a new way of applying AI to all the job functions in the organization.
And just real quick on that point too, Andreessen Horowitz, the A16Z folks, they created Netscape. They talked about software's eating the world. We argue that AI is going to eat software, but they put out this great report earlier this year, probably one of the best ones I think that's out there. I think everybody on this call should check it out. But to the point you were just saying, implementing and scaling Gen AI requires the right tech talent, which currently isn't in-house for many enterprises. But there is this gap right now. And what's interesting, a lot of the budget is actually going towards like the actual development costs and the people side of it. It's not just the LLM piece. So there's certainly this gap, in the market right now that a lot of enterprises are feeling. So getting your people up to speed is a key element, as Brandon was hitting on.
John, I would say even one more tactic that, maybe bringing in a partner's too expensive or whatever, get a contractor. Go on up. I mean, I don't use Upwork a lot, but go somewhere and get a contractor even. If you can't afford them, there's a lot of consultants out there that you could hire for fractional, just like, someone even like Kurt, you have an AI officer that's helping a lot of your customers. A few hours from Kurt can go a long way, and I think that that's also an option for a customer that maybe has no clue where to get started and maybe doesn't have the funding, to go pay someone to do it.
Really interesting. Can I just put you on the spot, because you said there's a lot of free training out there for companies. Can you give us an example or two that we can direct our audience to?
Yeah, I'll show you. And we can drop some of these links in the chat, but just from our site, and there's a lot of good stuff out there, but we're trying to kind of curate it. We have our newsletter and blog, which is 100% focused on AI and from, a CEO and leader's perspective. We have the podcast, I think you mentioned that earlier, wholly focused on AI. So we're talking to leaders in the space, experts on AI. I think the most exciting one is our GenDD Labs, though. It's getting into very specific topics. If you're talking about learning, if you want your people to start learning, and not trying to do a selfish promotion here, but there's a lot of good recordings out there on these we put out there. They can start to get your people up to speed with the foundations, and they can do it on their own time. So we can definitely share, some of those.
And John, I have one more that we started with, because we didn't have GenDD Labs when we started this a year and a half ago. That's all free, what Matt just showed you. Coursera You can get some really high level. And then if you've already got, like say you use Google or for your infrastructure, like your email and everything, like Google has tons of free courses that you can take on. It's going to be more geared toward their version of their version of ChatGPT with Gemini. OpenAI, right? If you've chosen that you want your team to use OpenAI, or maybe you're a Microsoft has tons of training that's free, right? So if you're on Azure and you're using Microsoft 365, which many companies are using 365 or Google as their infrastructure, one of those two, each of them offers tons of free courses on getting started, on understanding what is Gen AI. I mean, it's amazing because at first everyone thought they could like make some money off of these training and stuff, and it's no, like maybe hands-on, but in person, but online, it's everything. But you want to gear it towards your business. Like if I didn't have any knowledge and I was running on Microsoft 365, I would probably go to Microsoft and get their free courses and identify a couple that I want the team to take. And then I would also maybe look at a Coursera course, or one of the large training platforms, and say, this is one that's more about everything in AI, and I want all my team to take this. In fact, I think that's where we got our risk one from, right? Because a lot of the stuff that like a Microsoft or a Google, they don't talk as much about risk, right? About privacy and those things. So I'm fairly 100% sure that we got our privacy and our risk one from Coursera. And if there's a way later, I'm happy to get those links and share them. It has been about a year, but I'm happy to share those.
Terrific, thank you. So you all mentioned budgeting, and this is budgeting around people, but let's maybe zoom out for a second, talk about budgeting for AI generally. I mean, how expensive is it to build an AI application?
So these bots, like the Hatchie bot that Matt showed earlier, that took us about 6 weeks. And so a lot of these are, I mean, and what that means in money is like a lot of these POCs, I'll say you can build them for less than 100K. Okay. A lot of people spend 30 to 50K on building a nice website, right? So these aren't incrementally more expensive, but you got to keep in mind that that's the POC. That's the, it's kind of like having a kid, and it's about 10 years old and it's not quite ready to be an adult yet. And so it needs to continue to grow. And so one of the things you have to think about when you build these, unlike a website, is the cost of ownership. So you're going to have to continue. If you keep adding data, you're going to have to keep training the model. Okay, so for example, in HatchieBot, we're plugging it into our Bamboo, which is our HRIS. We're adding more people. And so as we're creating more data, you have to continue to tune that, right? So it continues to get older, and you have to continue to. So you don't want to just look at, oh, wow, look, I can build it for $80,000. It's amazing. Let's get it built. You still have to do work on it longer term. So, and it's not like a website that's static. Yeah, your website might crash and you want to pay someone to support it. This is way more critical because you're talking about responses, right? If that bot is giving the wrong responses to your people or your customers, you have a problem, right? And there's been a lot of that that's happened out in the market. And so when I talk to people about cost, it's a very low cost barrier to entry. That's pretty low cost, under 100K typically to get there. But when you start moving it to production and you want, this is real time, that's when your costs start to go up. And so you really have to look at it holistically and look at that total cost of ownership. But the bar to entry is not too much more than a website to get in.
Let's say I just kind of swallowed hard when you said 100,000. Are there shortcuts to be able to, get something to market or get something that's going to enable my team that wouldn't necessarily, have that CapEx up front?
Yeah, I mean, that's on the high side. And these have come down. I mean, we have projects we were doing a year ago that now cost half the price of what they do now. So like these a couple things, the models are getting cheaper because it's so, I mean, that's a race to the bottom there, right? In terms of Llama and OpenAI and all these models coming out, because they're all competing all the margins away there. But when it comes to your business and building the bot, I mean, we built some of these for $30,000. Like it's not, I didn't want to say 30 and then someone goes to build one and the people want 70 or, but I would say less than 100, but a lot of the ones we've seen are more like in the middle of that, 50, something like that. And I would say too that there's more and more, like some of the data, the training that Matt showed, like we've got training on how to build a RAG, how to build, so if you've got, some engineers, like let them do it. It's a POC. What do you have to lose? I'm not suggesting putting it, using it for your customers, but if you start small and you've got, even an IT team that does support, there is a lot of training and stuff out there that, you could try to get your hands dirty, without typically messing up anything if you're doing it, in a test bed or a staging. So that would be a way to start without necessarily spending any money.
I'd say too, if you want to go really cheap, building custom GPTs within ChatGPT, great way to get started. You can proof of concept, and that's just, $20 monthly. And we got a whole course actually on how to do that. It's a really good way without having to actually physically code something to build a GPT, which mimics like a RAG-based solution or something. You're building agents effectively. But I'll drop that, not to overload with things, but that course on how to do this.
Please do. And obviously our previous webcast on leveraging ChatGPT in business is a good reference for that as well, in case anyone's interested. One of the things that you all educated me on previously was the idea of building custom solutions versus leveraging existing AI platforms. And I think that might be an important question the CEO can maybe ask around AI implementation. Can you kind of share some thoughts on custom models versus leveraging existing AI platforms and how CEOs ought to think about that?
And I think really that gets into the topic around open source versus closed source. And a lot of folks are probably familiar with that, but just for reference, what is open source? It's the source code is publicly accessible. Anybody can go get it. There's this nice community around it where people are all making it better. Closed source, it's restricted, the source code, and the distribution is limited by the entity that owns it. So ChatGPT, OpenAI, forget about their name, it is closed source. If you want to access that within one of your solutions that you're building in a custom way, you're going to have to leverage their API, and you're going to be paying for each interaction you're having with it. Closed source is the approach we like, frankly, in a lot of ways. And there's big players. There's tons of closed source options out there. Brandon's mentioned, you've heard Llama several times. That is Meta, like Facebook and Instagram. They have built an open source solution there called Llama, and you don't have to pay for that, right? So you can have the source code and you can build a custom solution around it. And the best analogy I like to give is like, why use a Ferrari when all you need is a Honda Civic, especially when people can't even see you driving the Ferrari in the first place, because the model is like embedded in the solution. They don't know, right? The whole value of driving the Ferrari is you get to see me driving it around. So there's a huge cost benefit with going open source. There's a lot more security as well, because now I'm not passing data to OpenAI or any of these other closed source providers. You get to keep that within your own private cloud, on-premise, or whatever your infrastructure is like. And just the last point here, this is the A16Z study again. A lot of enterprises are moving to this. Like 41% will increase or already using majority open source. 41% are going to switch when open source matches performance, which after this study came out, Meta's performance actually was right up there with OpenAI and ChatGPT. So again, as a CEO, another core question you need to be asking when you're having these AI discussions: are we going to leverage open source or closed source? It's a key decision point. So now you get RAG, and now you get open source, closed source. So a few questions you need to be considering when you're thinking about AI and integrating it.
Let me get on another basic one that you actually had on the previous slide, and that is a modality.
Yeah.
Can you define what AI modalities are and why CEOs should care about them?
Yeah, and this is probably one of I'm excited to show this one off in this area. So what is a modality? Basically, you can utilize different inputs, outputs. Well, what are those? Think about like your senses, right? Text is the heavy one everybody's thinking about today with ChatGPT and all those things, but there's other modalities. You have audio, you have image, which people have seen all the AI generated art and things. You have video, and then you have like the tactile sensory. You're actually seeing some robotics starting to be integrated with some of this. But just to show it off, so this is a tool called Hume AI, and I'm going to start this webcam here. And what it's doing, it's using a large language model to actually detect my emotions. So if I'm super happy, I'm excited to be here on this webinar, you're seeing amusement, joy, excitement. I'm hoping people aren't sitting there like, oh my God, what are these guys talking about? I'm distressed, I'm tired, I'm bored, right? Really cool tool. You can leverage this via an API. And frankly, ChatGPT may have just killed this whole product with their release of 4.0. You're going to be able to do some of this. But think about what this enables. Like when your salespeople are pitching, wouldn't it be great if I knew like if it was actually resonating? Think of like customer support. If you know somebody's about to go ballistic and maybe I need to escalate it or offer them something. Think of like psychologists, counseling in schools, like all these type of early indicator type of things. And one other one they have that's really cool. I'm going to test this out. It's a chat interface, right? So let me try this one out with y'all. We'll give it a go. All right, so I'm going to start a conversation. This is another product from Hume AI. Hey, how's it going today?
Not too bad, thanks. How about you? What's new?
I'm doing good. I'm thinking about going to the beach with some family and friends. I'm really excited about it.
Oh, that's awesome. Beaches always bring good vibes.
Do you see
Any
over
favorite
here on the
beach
right?
activities?
It's showing like the joy, the triumph, all these things. Yeah, you know, I'm usually get to throw the ball with my dog, but you know, my dog recently passed away.
Oh no, I'm really sorry to hear about your dog, and that must be tough. It's great. You'll have family and friends around for support.
Like so think about this. Like you can see over here to the right when I was talking about the happy, going to the beach, excitement, joy, contentment. When I got to the dog passing away, which by the way, my dog is sitting right over there. She's fine. It got into like sympathy, like empathetic pain, like all these like nuanced emotions. So like you hear like chatbot, the thing we say, it's like the tip of the snowflake that just landed on the iceberg. Like this stuff is getting insane. And you know, if I have time here, I just want to show off one thing that kind of puts a bow on it. This is one of the robotic companies backed by NVIDIA, OpenAI, Jeff Bezos, all these people. So this is putting all the modalities together, right? Sensory, the LLMs, the input, the output, all of that. So give this a quick watch.
Hey, figure one, what do you see right now?
I see a red apple on a plate in the center of the table, a drying rack with cups and a plate, and you standing nearby with your hand on the table.
Great, can I have something to eat?
Sure thing.
Great. Can you explain why you did what you just did while you pick up this trash?
On it. So I gave you the apple because it's the only edible item I could provide you with from the table.
Great. So based on the scene right now, where do you think the dishes in front of you go next?
The dishes on the table, like that plate and cup, are likely to go into the drying rack next.
Great, can you put them there?
Of course.
By the way, who else wants this in their house? Maybe a little creepy, but doing the dishes and the laundry, that's pretty awesome.
All right, so how do you think you did?
I think I did pretty well. The apple found its new owner, the trash is gone, and the tableware is right where it belongs.
So I'll stop it there, but like just pulling all these things together. Again, what do we talk about what Gen AI is good at? Pattern matching, reasoning, all of those things that are mimicking logic. So it knew that an apple was food. It knew that dishes go in a drying rack. And it even had this kind of weird, you know, artificial self-awareness of how it performed the task. So, you know, think of how these type of things could be applied in your business in the future. Obviously, you don't start at like robots and all of that. Start at the easy stuff, internal use cases, the chatbots, build your muscle. But this stuff is real. A lot of this, stuff we saw in fantasy and science fiction, it's quickly becoming real.
And so these modalities, I think the examples in the robot are obviously there's vision, there's, I guess, touch, there's speech. As a CEO, then how should I be translating that? Because there's this vast array of amazing sitting out there, but obviously I need to think about this in terms of the application for my business. And so how do you see successful businesses translating all those capabilities into something pragmatic for my business?
So John, I have one, like using the vision part of that. So I've talked to a couple of CEOs and we're helping with the data side of it, but basically they're using the vision component. They're in the pharmaceutical distribution business. I mean, actually they manufacture and they distribute. They were using about 10 humans and kind of rotating them to do quality control, right? So the pills come through and the humans were looking and trying to figure out which ones have defects to pull, and they would pull, and they'd have to switch every 30 minutes because the human's eyes get tired. So they're using the vision aspect, which was a lot of what you saw in that video, to figure out which pills are defective and which ones are not, and the robots taking the pills out of the line. So now those 10 humans are now doing completely different job. They didn't get rid of them, they just moved them to different functions. And so I think what you're seeing as more and more of these alternate things besides just text are becoming very popular. Another one is that we have a client that we're working on it now, and it's a little bit, I would say, pushing the envelope a bit, but they're in the surveying business. And the idea is that we would actually make calls, not robocalls, but a human would initiate the call, and then the bot would actually do the survey, would do this. So now we're talking about voice, okay, and understanding what you're saying with natural language, and then taking the results of the survey, taking the data, and then pulling it all together. So I'm seeing more and more where people are starting to apply, 1, 2, 3, not just your normal, kind of text type of models, of course, but a lot of it's using, I think, computer vision and looking at pictures. Another crazy use case, a gentleman that we know owns 50 car washes. And so he has 50 locations. And so the quality control is done by the manager at the end of the line who says, John's car was clean or it was not, by visually looking at the car. Of course, sometimes he misses spots. And so what they started using is computer vision, take the picture of the car before and after, and then it quickly uses AI to look and say that car is clean or that car is not clean, and then tells John, hey, the car is good or not good, the person that's on the grounds. And that's increasing the quality and making it the same across all 40, 50 locations, allowing them to scale, which I thought was super creative use of AI from a vision perspective.
Yeah, I can see that too.
The
modalities that we were talking about before too. Sorry, did I interrupt?
No, I was just saying that gets back to like the benefit around improving your margin. And the key thing that's changed as before, if you tried to do that example Brandon just said, you would have to go build and train your own model, which is millions of dollars, now upwards of billions with some of the big, huge models out there. Now you can just use these off the shelf and you can fine tune it for fractions of the cost. So that is why this like huge trend has just blown up lately, has been the democratization of it. I love use cases. It's one of the best things to start learning how others are applying it. Morgan Stanley, a big player, they've used a tool to assist their financial advisors. They pumped 100,000 research reports into this tool that their financial advisors can now interact with to get answers to customer questions. So again, instead of the financial advisor spending time doing all the research, what do you want your financial advisor doing? You want him providing a nice customer experience. You want him, or him or her selling, right? So that's another example out there.
Yeah, super interesting. But by the way, just as an aside, we got an audience question on the robot with the dishes. And the question was, is this a robotic? Is this a real demo or is this using CGI? I think I know the answer.
It's real. It is real. It's backed by NVIDIA, OpenAI. So Figure AI is the name of the company. Jeff Bezos' venture fund is invested in it. You have Figure AI. You have Elon Musk has Optimus, and then Boston Dynamics has been around forever. The leap forward though is leveraging LLMs, that reasoning and pattern matching, as effectively the brain. So there's been a lot of advances in robots, but it had to be very deterministic. I had to say, okay, robot, you're going to do this, then that, then that, then that, and I have to solve for every edge case. With LLMs, I don't. They just are trained on the world around them, or whatever training set you want. Say it's in like a fulfillment facility, it's trained on that, and then it can execute the task based on what it's been trained on. But yeah, that's 100% real.
Very cool, very cool. So you all obviously have this incredible perch on clients and applications and what works, but also sometimes what doesn't work. What would you say, if you were to generalize, especially for this audience here today of CEOs, what are the common pitfalls that CEOs should be aware of, and how can they preempt or avoid them?
Sure. The first one, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, is definitely on total cost of ownership. So making sure, Matt hit on it too with these open source models, which are free. If you use a closed source model, that's fine, but you're going to pay for the volume, meaning you're going to pay like you're putting coins in a machine. And so sometimes, you might look and say, well, I can build that bot for $30,000. That's great. That'll get me the POC. And then I need to keep training that bot. So that's gonna, I got to pay somebody to support it or support it internally with one of my resources. And then I'm gonna have to pay for consumption depending on the architecture. And so I think that's one of the things we see. And we haven't seen a lot of where we have to come in and fix things like we do on the software side, because it's still so new and the models are changing. But I never, as a CEO, I never like to have sticker shock on, like, I have a budget, I know what I'm going to spend, and then I don't want to keep spending more and more. So looking at that total cost of ownership is very important. The second pitfall is going external too fast and not trying it internal. You can build like this Hatchy bot we built a while ago that Matt showed you. That's all internal. I don't have any customers that are going to get upset because of what we gave. And you've seen some of that in the news where, I don't know, it gave away plane tickets for some airline, was doing crazy stuff. So they were empowering it to do things. It's not 100% accurate. It won't be. And so testing it internally, I would say, kind of crawl and then walk and then run. And I cannot emphasize that more in a new technology that is changing so fast and getting better. It's also getting better. It's also in some areas getting cheaper. But you've got to be very careful about what you expose yourself to in doing that.
And on that discussion, ROI, back to this, great, everybody go check out this research study. But a lot of the ROI is focused on cost savings, which Brandon mentioned, 31%, only 9% on revenue. And then there's this huge gap of I believe ROI is positive, but not precisely measuring. And really, it's kind of in that art and science phase right now, where it's really focused on increased productivity, improving customer satisfaction or NPS score. But this key point right here is, part of it, you got to take some faith of, like, if your employees are saying they're getting better use of their time, there's value there. So again, start small and really empower your team to start taking advantage of this stuff is critical.
And one thing, John, to add that I think is the thing that no one talks about, or I don't hear a lot about. So people will ask the question, well, we built all these POCs, but how come so few of them actually make it to production? So one of them is definitely the crawl, walk, run, and getting comfortable. The number one thing I see is their unwillingness to change the way they work. Okay, it's an org thing. It's a work. So back to that example I gave about the pharmaceutical. If you don't reassign those people that were doing that job and you just keep them there, like, they don't change the workflow. Like, they put in the technology, but they're too scared, whether that, so I guess sometimes that can mean layoffs, but most of the time it just means changing the job function and doing something else. And so one of the things, and that's not a technical problem. This is more of kind of when I'm from a CEO perspective, right? We have work structure, we have organizational transformation. And so I would encourage a CEO or a COO to really look at like, okay, we're going to build this technology and we're putting this in, but then what are the impacts to the organization that would allow us to scale this? Okay, we have customer service reps. We're building this bot. This bot can take away the low-hanging dumb questions that we get that are kind of a waste of time. So how are we going to repurpose the time that we save with our team? How are we going to structure that workflow for that bot or agent or whatever to be in there? And so I think that's a piece that I also see as a mistake, and one of the reasons that some of these POCs kind of stop at POC and never really make it to market. It's not a technical problem.
I was talking to one client yesterday too. The way they're looking at ROI is if their people are happier, which is like a complete change of how I've always thought about it. If they're giving them these tools and these ways of making their job easier, they can retain people better, they can attract more people. And that was critical. That was the most important thing to their business. So a completely different angle of thinking about the ROI equation versus just, straight kind of P&L.
Yeah, and it speaks to the impact on those people and processes, Brandon, that you were just referencing as well. I think that's a really interesting one. We're getting a number of questions around risks. And so if I could just get a general reaction in our last few minutes together in terms of where you see the trends. Are more people playing offense with AI, or are they playing defense to mitigate risk in their business? And then I've got one more question on top of that around how do you mitigate risk in actually implementation of AI? So are more people playing offense or defense is the first question.
I think it depends who the audience is, right? Like ventures throwing a ton of money out of it. Offense. But Brandon, yeah, probably got some thoughts.
Let's think about one of the first, before we got all crazy here with Chat GPT and Gen AI and the accessibility. AI and ML have been around forever. And what are they using it for? Fraud detection, to take risk out of the business. And so I think when I look at what the technology can do, it actually can be used to mitigate risk. And I see a lot of people playing offense with that. But then I also see a lot of people that are scared to play offense because they're concerned about what's going to happen with their data. They're concerned about their customer data. That's why I think it's interesting with like the RAG architecture and some of those pieces about where you're at. And I think next week or the next time y'all have the session where you're going to go deeper with Tim on data, that's a very interesting component of where I see a lot of customers' concern, which is around the data piece. But I would say it's about equal between offense and defense, but I also see people playing offense to mitigate risk, such as in fraud, such as like that car wash example I gave you. That's a risk for the owner every time they send a bad car out and the quality control is not there, and that car comes back, now I'm going to lose money, and that's a risk to my brand and a risk to my business. So I think you can almost flip this in some ways where AI could actually be used for good, to help you mitigate some of the other risk in your business.
I think on the risk side too, like these models are being attacked in new and novel ways because they just function differently. And John, we're probably too tight on time, but let me know. But there are some examples we've seen where people are attacking these systems in different ways. But yeah, let me know if there's time to hit that, or I think we're getting close to the end as well.
I think we're probably running out of time. Unfortunately, we won't get to a number of questions we've got as well. But Brandon and Matt, thank you. These were just terrific insights. But what I'm really grateful for is how you turned it so pragmatic and how you turned it so practical for our audience. And so thank you for doing that. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to learn more about how to create your AI vision or strategy or roadmap, feel free to use the link in the chat that's just reappeared to speak with one of our coaches. Also, stay tuned for our next webcast in our series, Avoiding AI Failure, Why CEOs Must Master Data Now, the one that Brandon was just referencing. That's on Thursday, the 27th of June at 8 Pacific, 11 Eastern. You won't want to miss that one because data that we didn't discuss today, but data is so critical in terms of the infrastructure of how you want to actually launch AI projects. Brandon, thank you so much. Matt, so grateful for your help. Just thank you for the time, and hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
John.